Welcome everybody Friday, and it is another episode. I think we're on episode 13 now of the Fulfilled Veteran Podcast, and I can't wait for you to meet Jay and Lisa today, and we're going to get to know each other even further as we get going, as you know. But I do self-sponsor, so I can say whatever the fuck I want to and all that kind of jazz, so not worry about people out there not wanting to spend money with me. I don't care. Because you're going to want to know about me, and I'm guessing these guys too, so appreciate you hanging out with us. And see what we got going on. So you guys may not have known, Jay and Lisa, you guys may not have known that I went to #1 on Amazon a couple weeks ago on a pre-launch. And so it's that's why there's a book on the upper corner, and I'll probably change that as we keep chatting and put a logo in there or something like that, depending on how the screen comes out. But yeah, so first $5 to give. And I've helped tons of veterans. By the way, so I own two main companies. So one of them, I help veterans with their, I call it VA money, the money they earn through their service. Every veteran out there needs to know about me. I will start off with getting the hooks in. There's never been a veteran that I've briefed that says, yes, Albert, I'm receiving all my money. None. And I've briefed tens of thousands of veterans thus far. So quick story, I was down in Nashville for a special operations event, and I walked up to a Night Stalker pilot, and I was like, hey man, I saw your pin, let me hand you my card. And he goes, okay, reads it, and he's like, all right, Albert, I appreciate it. I'm already 100%, man, I'm good. And he hands me my card back. And I said, let me just hold you for a second. Do you know about this? How about this? How about this? Well, all life-changing money, kids in college, death benefit money, all this kind of stuff. And he goes, oh shit, I didn't know about that. And he's a retired dude. So I was like, here's my card back. So no matter where you are or where you think you are, talk to me, because I know money that Uncle Sam does not want you to know about. I know this. I will prove it to you. I've delivered over, let's see, in the past 5 years, over 3,000 clients. They're at least $3 million each. And that's over $10 billion that I've delivered to my clients. Because I'm the guy that does it the right way. And that big ass check that's over my left shoulder, that's the money that you've earned through your service. And I'm the only guy out there who knows where it is, what it is, how to get there. Come see me. So that's why I got the podcast as well. So that's one menu item that I have. I do coaching as well, and that's on the empire building side. That's what everything I do is based off the book series that I've got. First book out, shoot, is the first 5 fucks that every veteran needs to know. And that's a lot of F words, so things like faith and family and fitness and finances, and a big F is fast. There's other Fs in there for free too, so you get some fucks for free. And we're gonna start doing some daily briefings, which we call, hey, if veterans are getting fucked out of their money every day, they probably need to know a daily fuck. So I will tell you about back pay and how to get your back pay clock started and all that kind of stuff, and how to get your empire going. Because I everything I do is with intention, and that's why it's called the Fulfilled Veteran Project, not the half-ass, let me just see what I can do, I don't work weekends project. That's not me. So and anyhow, so belated points here, but we are on Rumble, on YouTube. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, support us in any way you can, buy apparel, all that kind of stuff if you're out there, and or for those of you who are out there, tell your buddies about me. Because in the military, we always talk about be, know, and do. But what is first? You have to know better to do better, to be better. Tell your buddies about me. Tell them to be not selfish, but self-aware. You're worth a lot of money. You've earned it. You're the only one who earned it. My older clients would tell you, talk to Albert fast. My 60-year-olds and 50-year-olds out there, they're going to say, talk to Albert fast. Because how many arguments have you been in, or are you going to be in your life that are wrapped around money? And the betrayal of being a veteran and being like, well, I signed the document saying I was supposed to get a lot of money. I don't know where that is. It's a pain in the ass. It's actually impossible to do it on your own. So anyway, come see me. I'm going to turn it over to these two, and I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to sip my coffee quietly. So Jay was here first, but Lisa, ladies first. Tell us about a 1 or 2 minute story, what you did in the service, what you're doing now, so we get to know you better, and we'll take from there.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Wilken. I'm a United States Air Force veteran. When I was active duty, I served from 92 to 96. I worked in the hospital laboratory, didn't do anything special. I was what everyone referred to as us as the vampires. Anytime anyone would go TDY, come home, ready to PCS, they had to come through and get blood drawn and get that report done. Plus, then we did all the hospital work. And so my specialty was blood banking. Worked in the hospital blood bank and was responsible for our base's shipment to the whole blood processing laboratory that freezes blood products to have them readily available in the event that the United States needs a large quantity of blood. We have that frozen capability. So that's what I did in the military. I happen to also be a military sexual trauma veteran. I was medically separated from the military after the assault, after my second surgery. Did not have the best experience, obviously. This was before the sexual assault response teams. And then after that, I came home and really just put my uniform away and went on with my life. But I learned, like many other veterans learned the hard way, you don't just close the door on that chapter of life, especially if you've experienced any kind of trauma. And so my introduction into the VA was not a good transition as well, because I'm actually a veteran who has sued the United States of America for medical malpractice. Most people think you can't sue the government, but you can. I had an unnecessary surgery at our local VA medical center due to a nurse looking at the wrong lab results and verbally reporting those over the telephone to my doctor. And so when I asked the VA, what system are you going to put in place so this can't happen to another veteran, they explained there wouldn't be anything done here in Indianapolis unless it was done nationally. And that's not something that would be done. Now, it was really at that exact moment, sitting at this dining room table, that every symptom and side effect from PTS hit me like a ton of bricks. All the things I'd worked to get rid of, boom, they were back, and they brought their special friend, anger. And so I've been telling people for 20 years that I use my PTSD for good and not evil. I remember conversations verbatim. That helps me in my advocacy at the Indiana State House, because our elected officials can't tell me something in April, try to tell me something again just after election, because I can repeat to them exactly what they said and with the same tone and inflection in their voice. And so that's what I do, is I use my experience in the military to help other survivors know that they don't have to suffer in silence. And then I use my powers of PTS and I advocate for veterans to help protect and create benefits at the state level for us here in Indiana, and educate veterans that you don't have to suffer in silence, and one voice can make a difference. And so that's a little bit about me and who I am.
Good nutshell. There's a book out there called, like, what's it called? Get Naked First, kind of a thing. Like, show your vulnerability, show your wounds first. And like, hey, I'm 5'6", and people say, oh, I'm intimidated by you because you work with special operators. Why? why are you intimidated by me? So Lisa, I really especially appreciate you, because there's so many women that I work with that are clients of mine that I would say every single one of them has had some kind of something. Nobody has had an easy time. One of my openings in my book talks about that nobody's service was easy. And I would say nobody really says that every single part of my service was exactly how I wanted it to be. And I'm a unicorn writer or some shit like that. Nobody says that, right? So, and everybody's got some kind of bullying story or some shit like that, and especially the non or prior to internet days and stuff like that. Now we know more about those things, and that's why the VA has to move faster these days, and or at least be more. I don't call it faster, but information flow is faster. Like, we don't, this was back, I know Lisa's talking about fax machines when they were fax machines, but now it's like, it is, you ask a 20-year-old what a fax machine is, and they're like, oh yeah, it's a, like a little filter that's on websites or something telling you if it's true or not. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, just the language barrier and time frame barrier from like the no internet, the little internet to all that kind of stuff these days. And so I just wanted to commend Lisa on saying that, because yes, I've heard some horrible stories from both men and women of just like what you said. You not only did that happen, but then you get booted or you get pushed. I had a woman who was sent to like fucking South Korea or some dumb shit like that.
Oh yeah.
It just, they're like, hey, we're too busy worrying about big military right now. We don't have time to worry about your personal bullshit.
Yep.
It's so fucking gross. And that every time that, and this is for everybody out there, this is not a platform. My podcast is not a platform for everybody to feel better. Now, I call this the golf swing approach. We're excited to come in. I'm a lefty when I swing. So you come in excited, then you're going to hear some real shit, and then we're going to try to bring it back to a positive.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you people whole. When you find, I know you signed up for the money that's behind me and adventure and all that kind of stuff. And it's not, if you have a limb blown off, it's off. I can't get your limb back on.
Yeah.
But thankfully we can swing that back to a positive and move it forwards. Let's take your wisdom, because you can't, I heard a really good line. I think both of you guys are going to appreciate this. So there was a podcaster interviewing Candace Owens, and he said something about, because this was very, very fresh. And he said, the thing that you've been praying for is some kind of awesomeness for you, wisdom that you can help share with others. But then what do you have to go through to have wisdom? You have to go through fucking trials and tribulations. And so you guys' pain in mind as well is your passion now. Yep. And that's why we are doing all of us are doing what we're doing. And you other people out there that listen to this on building your empire, whether you're in the service or not, there's good people at every level. There's good teachers, there's good pastors out there and stuff like that. And if you're helping other people, your passion is probably based off your own pain. And you want to make sure that you're helping guide them. But yeah, the people like us who are elders, we had to go through a lot of shit to get where we are to tell other people, hey, this shouldn't happen to you. So I want to go back to something Lisa said earlier, because I just want to make sure everybody understands this. And it's on the structure of the government. So it's not real personal, other than it's a fucking nightmare. So I got 2 master's degrees and a bunch of other letters after my name. Who gives a shit? I was a consultant for a small team that would go to civilian hospitals and help them save money. Do you need to have a Coke machine or some shit like that on every floor? Or, hey, you know what? We noticed on this floor that you left the lights on all the time and you really don't use the lights. You don't need the x-ray machine or whatever all the time. Maybe you don't need to have that thing on all the time. So if you can go in and just save the civilian hospitals money, and you know how civilian hospitals are. So I'm in Indiana. I know Lisa is too. We know that there's like, what do we have? It's usually based off of a university. So you've got like IU North, IU Central, IU South. So if you got into one C-suite dude or lady, you could trickle down effect in a positive way. And they'd be like, yeah, we're going to adopt that from the top and we're going to make it fucking happen. Or it could be even just one hospital. Let's start with one hospital, all that kind of stuff. Let's do it there. Let's prove the concept. So the company that I worked for, I was consulting for, there's only like 60, let me see. Yeah, there's only like 60 hospitals in the nation that have this multi-billions of dollars of revenue. So this was like big shit that I was doing a part of. The reason why they hired me is because I'm a veteran, and they said, hey, we want to break in, which by the way, they'd already worked with the first, let me see, a third of the, I was going through my numbers in my head. So 20 was in my head. So a third of the hospitals, they had already worked with them. So they had already proven themselves big time. Hey, we can save a lot of money, we can streamline shit for you and take a bit of the profits of the money that we save you, kind of thing. That's their business model. So they said, hey, Albert, we want to bring you on board because you're a veteran and medical dude. So you probably know a lot about VA hospitals and shit like this. So we start talking, and then who do we start talking to? VA hospitals and other government contractors, and what are basic SWOT analysis? What are our barriers to entry on getting into these VA hospitals? And what we heard from these other entities that are out there, they said, hey, we don't even try to get into fucking VA hospitals. Here's why. Let's say you've got 5 floors in a VA hospital, and every floor is its own thing. So like lady stuff, man stuff, whatever stuff, doesn't matter. Well, in a civilian hospital, you talk to one person, you can get the job done for the whole hospital. Veteran hospital, VA hospital, it's one floor at a fucking time. It's one room at a time. It's one entity at a time. It's so slow, it's fucking stupid. So that's where the wall hit so hard that we all said, fuck this. We're not even going to go for the VA hospitals. There's just no way in. You can go get into a prison system, prison system, easier than in the fucking VA hospital. Because let me tell you this straight up, folks. The government doesn't give a shit. The government does not care. All they do is they have their own, they pay for their own fucking lifestyle, and that's it. They don't if they gave a flying fuck about veterans, they would pay us. Why is this big check over my shoulder? Why didn't Jay get this as he's walking out? Hey man, CIF, the last thing you're going to get is this big fucking check. See ya. That's what it should be. Yeah. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
Because the government doesn't want it to be.
You know, when I first got out of the military, I was medically separated, right? Which meant you're not worldwide qualified, so you got to go. You're not going to let you re-enlist. It's an honorable discharge. It's not what the person wants, right? But so your body isn't good enough to stay in the military. You've been damaged enough. You know what my first rating was from the VA?
Probably 10% on it. Yeah.
10%.
Yep.
I was service connected for a couple of things, but not non-compensable. And it took me from 1997 until 2012 to get my accurate, actual VA rating. And so it was a fight, and that's why I do and volunteer my time, because I'm 100% volunteer. I do this because I don't want another veteran to realize at 2:00 in the morning while they're up on their narcotics after another surgery that was service connected, and they do the math in their head of how much money they and their family have missed out on because they didn't know about appealing their decision, or they didn't know of the benefits that they should have been applying for. And so that's why I do and volunteer my time to help other veterans so they don't make the mistakes that I made and that I've seen other veterans make, like 100% disabled veterans or disabled veterans 10% or higher here in Indiana pay for their kids' college tuition at a state university, or worse, that kid go into debt to pay for their college when they could have gotten their tuition free. And so that's why, I do and speak up and speak out when our benefits are challenged, or when there are things that our state here in Indiana, which is behind all the other states. I mean, we only rank like 42nd in the amount of money that comes into the state for our veterans, but we used to have the 4th largest National Guard. Now we have the 6th largest National Guard, but our deployment rate per capita is amazing from our state. And we should be bringing in higher revenues via disability compensation to our veterans in Indiana that they can't tax, which is what they pay attention to. Let's be honest. What can we tax? What can we tax? But what we have been trying to do here in Indiana is educate those people, our elected officials, of how much revenue comes into our veterans in Indiana. And if we invested in giving them the ability to have more assistance in getting that money off of the federal table, that's money they tax, and then tax again as we spend it in our local communities. And so, it's important that we talk about VA disability compensation, what has your service earned? Not only does that help the veteran but what it also does, it keeps our government honest about the true cost of war.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps our VA funded appropriately. If the veterans currently and of our past generations don't get the benefits that they've earned, they won't fund the VA in the manner that they need to for future generations. And so it's important that when we hear from a veteran and they say, oh, I don't need the benefit, I'm going to reserve that for somebody that needs it more than me. No, whether you need it or not, you need to make the government pay it because you've earned the benefit. It keeps them honest, and you may feel differently in 5 years. So let's go ahead and get it started.
Benefit. Go with me on this, guys. Go with me on this.
Yeah.
I try not to use Lisa too much because I don't want to like pull on your heartstrings too hard. But I'm going to use me and Jay for a second, okay? Jay. They call it World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam. They start going, well, conflict. They start using softer words. Doesn't that sound like more of a psyop? And then, hey, we've got Gulf One, and then Gulf Two, and how many times did you go downrange and deployed? They don't use what Jay? What did you get every single day when you were in Afghanistan? Would you say, were you surrounded by the friendly people, or were you surrounded by enemy people who wanted to fucking kill you if you went outside the wire, or even when you're inside the wire? So I say I get fucking, if I wasn't getting shot at, I won't say every day, but I, as a medevac pilot, was flying out to all these little places around Afghanistan, from Korangal Valley all the way down to Fob Warrior, and I know I was getting fucking, I was there. I shot. It's war every single fucking day. It's combat every single day, whether you think or not. It's not a movie, people. It's fucking combat. So, anyhow, my point in using those language there is the VA uses softer words. It's a fucking psyop. So one of my master's degrees, by the way, in short version of this, is it's in neuroscience of like, who are you? What is the language? How do you communicate with things? And I was in combat. I was in war. I wasn't deployed. I wasn't downrange. I wasn't whatever the fuck else other soft dummy ass word you want to put in there. So, and Lisa's experience wasn't softer language either. So, and every veteran and service member serving right now, they signed the dotted line to do good things and all that kind of stuff. And the government then is betrayal on the other end of saying words like benefit. Let me give you an example. I didn't know that the VA has a podcast now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just popped up in my feed the other day. I didn't watch the whole thing or subscribe to it because I don't know what the fuck bullshit they're going to send me. But I did listen to, this guy said he's a Marine in his late 30s, and he said something like, I'm 100% permanent total, and here's the top 12 benefits from Uncle Sam. And he mentioned some stuff that, like Voc Rehab, or it's called VRE now, Voc Rehab. What else he got in there? Like dental and free medical care, and like Lisa alluded to, surgery, come on down. Mm-hmm. Did he once mention back pay? Did he once mention the actual pay that you get per month? Did he mention anything about property tax reduction or removal? Did he mention anything about Chapter 35 that you guys have already mentioned and alluded to? No. That's weird, because those are life-changing money. Life-changing money, not benefit, life-changing motherfucking money. I'll give you another real-world example. I've got two clients, they're brothers, and both of them are West Pointers, and they're older. So on one of the brothers' 65th birthday, he received he had already received his 100% permanent total, and it takes some time for the money to come in. So 100% permanent total, he receives on his 65th birthday about $25,000 on back pay, because he went from like 90 to 100 or 80 to 100 or something like this. And that was just the beginning of it. So he gained a little bit more money after that. Now, he also received 100% on mental health, which if you know about SMCS or CRSC, the government doesn't tell you about that. VA doesn't tell you about that. So SMCS is, SMC stands for Special Monthly Compensation. The letter S is just a line item. So I currently receive this too. I'm not retired. People who are not retired qualify for 100% on mental health alone without any restrictions to your life, by the way. So I'm going to clarify that. Yes, you can fly and own guns and all this kind of stuff. Yes, you can. So 100% on mental health alone, and your physical math adds up to 60 or above, human math, then you receive, I currently receive $428 more a month because I've got a wife and 5 kids. And I got 10 months worth of back pay, so about $4,000 back pay on that. So SMCS. So he received that. Then I helped guide him to CRSC, Combat Related Special Compensation, which whether you went to combat or not, doesn't matter. You did combat modalities. You did things, whether driving a tank or whatever, being a warrior, even lady, home and admin lady. What are you first? What are you first? You're a killer. You're a warrior. You're a hunter. You're a gatherer. So you do combat modalities. So if you're retired or medically retired, that's the caveat right now. But I'm setting my clients up so that even if they're not combat or not retired, I'm setting their paperwork up so that when the VA goes 5 or 10 years from now going, you know what, that 20-year GWOT war, that kind of sucked. We kind of put these dudes through the fucking ringer. How about we pay everybody, but their paperwork has to be crisp and accurate? Boom. So anyhow, it's $2,000 more a month. $2,000. So a non-retired veteran should receive about $5,000 a month, tax-free. That's, the VA calls it disability, but at some point in time, they gotta tell you the fucking truth. When you go to the VA and they call it a CMP exam, why is it called CMP? Compensation and Pension. It's not a disability exam. So the VA lies to you and tells you it's disability. Oh, how many disability points you got? It's not about that. It's compensation and pension. Uncle Sam told you years ago when you signed the contract, hey, you're going to be dented and dinged. I'm going to drive you like a fucking rented Ferrari. And he does. Years later, you just have to do some fucking paperwork and prove it, which honestly, folks, is not all that hard to do. I figured it out. It ain't fucking hard. You just have to put a little effort into it and have some stamina. That's it. But it works like a fucking champ. Because the government's asking for crisp, accurate, compliant paperwork. Yeah. If the government's looking for, in any shape or form, when there's money involved from somebody to somebody else, it has to be crisp, accurate, compliant. I don't represent my clients, just to let everybody know I'm not a representative. I just am a guy who knows shit. That's it. I want to say that's it. That's fucking all it takes to be a life changer. So a retired guy should receive $7,500 a month. So getting back to my 65-year-old client who said, so now he got approved for CRSC at 100%, and he hasn't received the back pay in his bank account yet. He got approval from the government. So he's on the phone with the government. And he told me this the other day. He said, Albert, here's what the government told me. They said, I will receive a back pay all the way back to February of not this year, but last year, 2023, from when he got his 100% rating with me. And that's going to come out to an additional $50,000 in back pay, and that about $2,000 a month for him because he's older and doesn't have kids like I do. Nobody knows the money that I know. And I saw Jay wiggle around and go, what? Retired dudes getting big fucking money? I wouldn't know about that. The VA doesn't tell you any of that shit because they don't fucking want to. So the reason why I've got the podcast too, folks, is that if in 5 years with just word of mouth, without a podcast, without YouTube channels and all this kind of stuff, just word of mouth with doing what I do, if I've gotten to where I am, where SEAL Team 6 comes to me, Delta dudes come to me, Air Force One, MARSOC, 160th, fighter pilots, shall I go on? They come to me. Why do they come to me? They are killers. I'm just 5'6" of fucking nothing. And guess what? I go to where they are. I go to the conventions, AUSA, Quad A, blah, 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 whatever the fuck else, Destin, all that kind of stuff. I'm in the room with these killers and looking them in the face, and they go, Albert, you fucking life-changing motherfucker, come here. Hugs. So imagine now that I've got a podcast, if I got this far in 5 years, what could I do with a podcast and with light years ahead of anybody else? So my point is, what would it look like under, let's say, a Trump presidency of, hey, let's call up Lisa and Albert to head the entire fucking VA. because we're tired of this fucking bullshit. Let's call Tracy Davison out of Nashville, who she's not a veteran, but her husband was. She's a widow, but she's former educator from New York. What if they called her up and said, "Hey, we want you to be in charge of fucking, you're on the cabinet for education"? What do you think all of us would do day fucking one? Scrap everybody out there. You're all fired. Go in the civilian sector and make shit happen. And then we'd probably be like, "Hey, President, I quit. I'm out." Because we don't need this much fucking government. Lisa talked about a bad surgery. How many clients do you think I've got who also have had bad surgeries?
Yeah, and at the time, I didn't know about 1151 benefits. I just did I did the research myself, and I found, I can file a federal tort claim, and I found a local attorney through my father-in-law who does medical malpractice. And, the first offer the VA gave me for settlement was a lump sum amount, but then they wanted to offset that with my service-connected disability pay. Now, I knew that that was wrong, but my civilian attorney, who had worked with this U.S. attorney who handles things for the VA on other issues, like with the post office, but he'd never really handled a VA issue. And so I did the research online and found out that there are special circumstances of when the VA can offset a tort settlement or judgment. And that's when the veteran has filed 1151 benefits. So then I found out what 1151 benefits were, but I never filed them. So imagine the scenario in the federal courthouse in Indianapolis. I have an attorney, myself, my husband. The U.S. Attorney, Southern District in Indianapolis, or in Indiana, which eventually became my U.S. Congresswoman, sitting across the table. And after the niceties, I said, "May I speak?" And of course, the federal magistrate said yes. And I pulled out of my bag some paperwork. I passed it around the table. As I said, I believe the VA has tried to perpetrate a fraud upon this court by offering me a settlement that they legally cannot do. If you will see in these examples below from the VA's own regulations, I'm example number 2. I was being treated at a VA facility for a service-connected disability, and their treatment caused me harm. And therefore, they cannot offset any settlement or judgment with my VA disability compensation, only 1151 benefits, because otherwise the government would be paying twice. And so my attorney shot me a look like he could have just strangled me. And the federal magistrate asked if my attorney and my husband and I could step out for a moment, which we did. We were out of the room for about 5 minutes, and they brought us back in. The U.S. attorney had left through a different exit. And the federal magistrate let us know that we would be rescheduling that meeting when the VA could come to the table with a legitimate settlement. And talking about your soft words, MST, those letters behind my name encompass everything from harassment to rape. That, and when I testified before Congress on this topic, I explained to them that I'm a military sexual trauma veteran. And for me, what that means, I'm a rape survivor of friendly fire. And that's something people need to realize, that this happens a lot more in the military than anybody ever knows. People are talking about it now, but it's much more prevalent than people realize. And it happens to men. It's not just a woman's issue. And so I want to make sure that I make that point, that it happens to many men. And once it happens to them once, a lot of times they are re-victimized because they're not believed. and then they become a target. And so I want to make sure that any male survivors that are out there know that they can reach out for assistance. When we talk about military sexual trauma, we talk about women, it's not just a women's issue. It happens actually to as many or more men because of their numbers over the years of service. And I just wanted to make that point, and especially on the soft language. We need to talk about it like it is. And I received special monthly compensation K for the loss of the use of a creative organ. Now, when I went to file for it, my county veteran service officer told me, "Oh, you can't file for that. That is for combat related issues for men who lose the ability to use things below the waist." He couldn't even say the words. He couldn't look me in the eye when I used the words like uterus. He would look away, and I said, "Well, I'm going to file for it anyway." And I got it. And so if I would have listened to that volunteer at my county veteran service officer, I would have missed out on that benefit. And so that's why I worked on legislation here in Indiana to require our county veteran service officers to be accredited with the VA. So they at least have some education and can be held accountable if they don't help the veteran properly.
Many other stories on those.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure.
In short, here's what we need to bring back. We need to bring back dueling. We don't need to worry about term limits. Let's bring back fucking dueling. Meet me at dawn. Smack. I guarantee you people will be like, "I quit. I'm done. I don't want this job anymore. I'm going home."
Yep.
Go
now, here's something. I spent a lot of time at the Indiana State House testifying on bills, having meetings about legislation or veterans issues. And every single time I leave the State House and I walk out those doors, I always park off of Capitol Street, and I walk out those doors, there's a breeze. It hits you. It's cold out. And I say one word: morons. And what that does is it lets me leave all of the negativity associated with trying to get things done for anybody within government behind, and I can let it wash off. So I try to not bring it home with me, because what my PTSD means to me is I don't deal real well with stupid. And you run into a lot of that when you're trying to get things done in a positive manner. When your special interest group, veterans, nobody likes to acknowledge that, but we are a special interest group when it comes to trying to get things done within the government, but we don't endorse candidates. We don't donate to their campaigns. And so they pretend to listen to us, but they're not really hearing what we say. And so we have to hold them a little more accountable than we do. And I have a policy. I'd love to see different veterans kind of adopt that. We need to be bipartisan when we work on veterans issues. Work with either party. We have to be willing to give it to either party as well when they're not doing what they should be, or when they're doing stuff that they shouldn't be. Shame is an excellent deterrent and motivator. We use it with our children. Why not use it more with our elected officials and hold them more accountable and get some real changes made, so that this big giant system that they have in place can really benefit veterans? And one of the things that we can do, which your podcast and what you're doing with what you do, is making veterans educated on what they've earned. And that word benefit sometimes is interchanged with a word that's used in a negative connotation: entitlement. Veterans, the benefits that we receive are not entitlements. We've earned those benefits by not being the same, either in body or in mind, that we were when we took that oath. And that's the difference, and why they want to call it disability. It makes people feel less, and disability is related to entitlements. And it's a way of keeping us in our place instead of us veterans standing up and going, no, we should be getting everything that we've earned by volunteering. And I'll get off my soapbox.
So everything you're saying means in short version of this, and this is why it's an F in my book too, is I say fast. The VA or government wants you to do things slowly. They want to lie to you. Then when there's any step that you take, it's going to be like, okay, door number 1. But then what you don't know is that there's like 8 different fucking doors you have to apply for. You're going to be told no umpteen times. I mean, a dude in MARSOC who has one of my master's degrees in leadership, he got denied for folk rehab for a PhD. He was in fucking MARSOC. So he called me that day, pissed off. What the fuck? These fucking fuck. So I help my clients, my veterans, and my intent with this podcast and my book series is to help you guys fast. So that's why my book will now be on Amazon. It'll be in multiple places like Military Policy. So whenever anybody looks up any kind of leadership book in any leadership anywhere, like The Art of War, my book will be right there looking at them in the face. What's this $5 veterans thing I need to know about? And same thing with like personal growth and personal finance. It's in those little nooks too. So when they look at Rich Dad, Poor Dad, guess who's right fucking next to that? This guy. So things like that. But speed is key, folks. Speed is key. So I hear this all the time from folks like Lisa of however it took me these years and decades of, God, I wish I would have done this before. I wish I would have known about you faster and that kind of thing. So again, that goes back to me having a podcast now. Maybe shame on me. I've been a silent professional for maybe too long. But I'm here now doing the hard stuff. And one guy I listen to every day is Dan Bongino. And even though it's not his saying, he says something I always got to look up there of like, if you want to be the change, if you want the change, be the change. So pick a lane and fucking rock out in it. So again, your experience is your passion, is your menu, and it is your craft. You can be paid for it and all that kind of stuff, or whatever you want to do, volunteer, whatever your thing is. And that's your empire to grow. But that's why I do empire building too. It's help people. So if it's not us veterans doing it, and that's what I finally realized too, even after all my time, is veterans are my people. I don't want to help other people at this point, at this juncture, in order to, because nobody's going to come in and help us.
Yeah, or you have a personality disorder. It's not related to your 2 deployments, your military sexual trauma, your husband was beating you, and then you got put out with 2 kids with an OTH, and what are you supposed to do now, right? And so, that's another topic sometime for your podcast, is how people with OTHs are still eligible for certain healthcare benefits, and how they can, if they're eligible, to upgrade those discharges. And that military sexual trauma veterans, no matter what your discharge is, you can get treatment for military sexual trauma issues, physical and mental health, at your VA medical facility. And there's a specific person at the VA that helps you get into the system. But again, nobody knows about it. That's what's so frustrating. These are services that should be available to all veterans, but you have to know somebody that can point you in the right direction, because there's not just one place that you can go and get all this information. And that's why people like your podcast and services are really important, because you don't take advantage of the veteran. But we have a lot of people who take advantage of our veterans.
So
I just helped a 94-year-old veteran, 94-year-old World War II veteran, and he had an accredited agent, whose insurance agent charged him $1,300 to help him get his paperwork together for non-service connected pension, which is basically a means tested benefit that helps our aging and elderly veterans kind of bridge the gap of what the income they have and the income they need to live a decent golden year time. But he charged this guy $1,300, filed the claim in December of 2022. The VA kicked it back. It was filed so poorly. This 94-year-old veteran's still waiting on his benefit because his paperwork wasn't done right and his age wasn't flagged. So we got the $1,300 back, but of course it's the government and he's still waiting. But $1,300 taking advantage of an elderly veteran like that, the guy should be ashamed of himself.
So I'll say it this way too. And that's what I like about the civilian or the open market. So just to be clear, I am a for-profit. I help veterans. I don't get in their back pay, but I guide them. I have contract with them, that sort of thing. So it gives them a hell of a lot more clarity. And I help them on money that they don't even fucking know about. And just going back to a widow story. So just showing you different doors of money that the VA or government knows about and just tries to pay people off. So woman who had a husband died of, he was a captain in the Army, and he died shortly after they got married in earlier 90s, something like that. They had just got married and he'd been dead for like 15 years or some shit by the time we get some paperwork done. Which, by the way, I don't charge widows. I charge other people so I don't have to charge widows, that sort of thing. And so I just guide her. I just say, hey, there's got to be something there. There's no way that a captain would need to, the captain that dies in service would not have any kind of money left over. That's stupid. So I was like, let's look into this. So I just guided her, and 6 months later, she received 3 things. She received back pay of $20,000. She received from here on out a stipend of $1,500 a month. And then thirdly, she received, they didn't have any kids together, so she had a insurance for herself, kind of a thing, health insurance. Does that make her whole? Her husband was dead for 10, 15 years. You're telling me that $20,000, again, I call it door number one. Door number one of money, that does not make sense at all. Her getting paid only $20,000 worth of back pay. And an fucking captain, 03 Army captain. I was an Army captain. I got paid, I was 03E and pilot. So let me see. I got paid $100,000. How the fuck is $1,500 a month supposed to be okay? So it's not okay. And health insurance for herself. But what I was saying is that this woman, she received $20,000 in back pay and $1,500 a month stipend in insurance, health insurance, which that's something. She's like, oh, it's such a blessing. It's nice. But I was like, come on, lady. You were married to an Army captain. I was an Army captain. I know what an Army captain makes in pay, and it ain't fucking $1,500 a month. That's
right.
Stupid. So I said, hey, yes, that's door number one. That's what the government does, tries to buy you off in that first door. Guys, let me tell you this. I want everybody to know this out there. So the more I learned about statistics, or the more that I've hired marketing people, and they find all these stats out there. So did you know that there are every single month over 65,000 veterans are Googling for help with their money? That's it. 65,000 veterans a month looking for help.
Yeah.
That's the big
I believe that.
Siri or something. They'll tell you that there's over 18 million living veterans right now inside the US. 18 million. Let's take less than half of that and say 6 million. Let's say 6 million veterans are not getting paid anything. And anything being bare minimum $5,000 a month. That comes out to being, what's that, 35 billion a month. That's what our government is hiding from our veterans. and their families to help them move their service forward so that they can buy into a franchise or open a whatever shop.
Yeah. Did you know that the VA kind of has a standard? They have a formula that they use that about 38% of all veterans should be receiving some type of VA benefit. But if you look at the statistics and the numbers, and we'll use Indiana as an example, we have a little over 400,000 veterans here in Indiana, and 10 years ago, we were at 14%. 14% of our veterans in Indiana were receiving their accurate disability and income from the federal government, whether that's VA disability, non-service connected pension, aid and attendance, homebound, those things.
Mm-hmm.
And after we have required our county VSOs, which is who most people go to help them, instead of them just getting to be volunteers who like to have coffee at the courthouse and have to actually be accredited and be professional in their craft, we are now at 22%. 22%. We've moved up a little bit, but it should be much higher. We are leaving millions of dollars on the table, and think of it this way as well. Veterans in Indiana, if we were a business, we'd be the largest payroll in the state. Indiana veterans, even at that low percentage, bring in over $4 billion into the economy in Indiana. But we don't have the clout where we need to get the changes made in our benefits and services because we're not organized enough to do it. And too often we think, oh, there's nothing we can do. It's the government. Hello? We've all been part of it before. We know that speaking up, you can make changes. And that's why podcasts like yours are important to help educate people about what is available and what they need to do to help themselves. And that's a big part of it, is us veterans have to take the initiative and take control. Otherwise, the VA is going to string us along as long as we will hurry up and wait on those benefits.
So let's talk about empire stuff. So now I told you, an hour goes by fast. 2 hours goes by even faster. So moving to the second hour here. So let me talk about empire stuff. So speaking of, just Jay, I want to get your feedback on this. So did you know that there are veteran chambers of commerce out there? And we've heard a lot about Indiana today. Do you know how many active chambers there are, veteran chambers, just in Indiana alone?
I do not know for Indiana, no.
Let me put that up there. 0. No veteran chambers of commerce. We're number 2 in the nation for what do they call those? The veteran monuments. Which, by the way, I'm not from Indiana. I'm born in California. I lived in Texas. So I've been here 12 years now. So
no, only Washington D.C. has more monuments than the state of Indiana.
But yet we have 0 motherfucking veteran chambers of commerce. So what do we not have? Going back to Lisa's point before, people who have money do what with it? Save it or spend it? They spend it. So what are veterans not doing in Indiana? What do veterans want to do? They want to take their money that they've earned and move it forwards. So one of my podcast guests from a few weeks ago, he's just published last week. You guys need to go watch that because he is just one-on-one. He's my age. He lives in Brazil, Indiana. And like I talk about with businesses is a lot of P's and G's. So like in order to get your passion going, you have to get started, So he has already been through a lot of the paperwork to get going and all that kind of stuff. So long story short, he could right now explode and do, he does dog treats. He calls it the barkery. So, and Hoosier Barkery is what it's called. So if you're not familiar, but he and I were talking about that, and it was just he and I on the podcast. And I was so interested and intrigued because I just love the idea of how to help somebody scale and focus that channel. So just imagine if he only went for one style of dog, let's say canines, and dog treats for canines that are as one may say, they're $1 million dogs. And that's when they're working correctly. If they're not working correctly, then that could be a lawsuit big time for the sheriff's department or whatever entity. And so I was telling him about this, and we talked for 2 hours about dog treats, and it was like scalability of it, and just even one silo, because it's just such a multi-billion-dollar industry, especially if you're in the care silo or canine silo. And it's not going anywhere. It's only upward trajectory. And what you're seeing out there for everybody in the room is that you're seeing a lot more a badass veteran being partnered with somebody else. It could be a chemist or something like that on how to make something better for veterans out there, because the government's not going to take care of our Navy SEALs or whatever. And so you'll see a Navy SEAL match up with a chemist. Well, this guy, he says that he won't. It's his own dogs approve it. So he said, hey, if my dog doesn't like it, I'm not going to even work on it and sell it. So he's even siloing himself even more in a good way. That it's like he gets approval from his own dogs, and then he's got his local veterinarian who's signing off on it. He's got his local sheriff's department that's a canine guy that signed off on it. So he's got these like partnerships going and growing. And I was telling him, I said, man, how many clients do I have that are FBI, CIA, Border Patrol, that have dogs? I've got all kinds of other entities out there, like service dogs that I'm connected to. So anytime I hear a service dog, I'm like, hey, let's talk about that for a little bit, because there's something in the canine and service world that is just so veteran centric, and also just it could be scalable. Lisa, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have quite a few friends that have service animals, and they are, trained service animals. One of the things that frustrates me in regards to service animals are the number of people that don't understand what service animals can do for a veteran and how they can change their lives and give them some autonomy back, instead of having to have somebody with them 24/7. It gives them the ability to go do things with their peers. I have a friend, she has a service animal, and he alerts her to seizures she has from exposures to chemicals. And her dog has saved her many times from further injury from having a seizure, standing up and falling and banging her head and risking, but she's also experienced several instances where businesses have given her a hard time of wanting to bring her service animal in, because there are so many people that will order a service animal vest off of the internet and slap it on their pet because they want to take them somewhere. And so, working with people who have nonprofits and businesses that work with veterans for service animals is so important. So we can promote those businesses to let people know how much they're helping change lives. Therapy animals are wonderful animals as well, and they make a difference in veterans. But service animals are animals that, people need to be able to function as much independently as possible. So I'm glad you take time to always talk about service animals if you have the opportunity.
Everybody starts smiling as soon as they do, right? You can't
Yeah.
help it.
They do.
Yeah.
And I have a veteran. She had not service, but therapy. She lives out in a small town in Indiana. I'm going to call it out. Shirley, Indiana, corner lot right on the edge of town, big yard, fenced in, and she had chickens. She got a letter from her town board telling her she couldn't have chickens because they're considered livestock and therefore can't be within the city limits. And so she talked to her therapist about this. She was just distraught because those chickens made her go outside every day, a couple times a day. Her therapist wrote her a letter that she took to the town board that those were therapy chickens, and they were needed, and how they got her out in the outside and the physical activity. And the town board said, well, we need to see you interact with that therapy chickens like they're a pet. So they actually sent the town manager to her house, and I was at that visit, and she walked out into her backyard and went, here, kitty, kitty, and all those chickens came right to her, and that town manager left, and they've never bothered her again. It's been almost 8 years, and she still has her chickens.
It's so funny. And I grew up on a ranch in Texas, cattle ranch, small cattle ranch, 50 acres, nothing big. But yeah, I'm used to being around all kinds of animals and stuff. And so we've got a dog in the house right now. We've got 3 cats that just roam the neighborhood, and they're an indoor-outdoor cat. So it's awesome. Just leave the window open. They're jumping in and out of the house, and everybody knows them and stuff. And we're out in the Geist area, so Lisa knows where that is. But it's the only water near around Indiana, Indianapolis area. There's a Geist Reservoir over here. We don't have a. Indianapolis is the largest city without a waterfront. We don't have shipping. No river, no big giant lakes that are connected to other waterways.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So it's weird. When you go anywhere else and you're like, oh, I mean, there's all this water over here, and you go to Indiana and go, shit.
Yeah, that's one of the things we have, when we try to attract veterans to come here after retirement, is because we don't necessarily have the climate that attracts veterans. We don't have mountains. We don't have, other than Lake Michigan, we don't have any waterfront really. We have lakes around the state, but so our benefits and things we have and we offer to entice our military, especially our retirees, to come here to Indiana, we need to stay on the top of our game. And we need to make sure all states are doing that, because what that does is it just helps our men and women who volunteered to serve, which is available to anybody. On benefits, sometimes I hear people say, oh, it must be nice to get that check from the government. I've never met one veteran that has said that they would rather get that money than they would be to have themselves whole like they were when they raised their hand. And so that's why it's so important that people know about you, so that they are able to get those benefits and not be waiting or miss out on a couple of a year's worth of back pay, because instead of doing that notice of intent to file, because they didn't know about it, they took the time to get their paperwork together before they submitted it. And so you are helping people in a way that changes their lives.
Agreed. I tell people all the time, like, I just want you to know about it. But so here's what's crazy. VSOs, American Legions, AMVETs, even the people who are, these are all my clients too, by the way, people who represent veterans turn around and become my clients. So if they were an ultimate, like we say in the military, right, train the trainer, I am the guy who actually gets it done for the people out there who are supposed to get it done. So I'll give you an example. I went down to Indianapolis once for a veteran event, and the people in the room said that there was a guy, I'm 44, so there's a guy about 10 years older than me and a guy about 10 years younger than me. And they both were supposedly helping veterans get VA money, veteran money that they've earned through their service. And I said, well, I'm 100% permanent total. Neither one of them were 100% themselves. And the younger guy goes, I've never seen anybody who's 100% permanent total. And I said, well, let me show you. Let me take a picture, brother. And he said, well, they're unicorns. I've never seen one. So ever since then, I stole that language that I say, well, I guess I've got a unicorn ranch, because that's all I do with my clients. Because you've earned, by the time I'm done with all my clients, at least 5 things happen. They're 100% permanent total like I am, because those are in 2 different areas. It'll say 100% on e-benefits, permanent total like me. Now, these 2 don't have to be perfect, but better. So the body part list that is more reflective of them, then human math being over 500 human math points, so that, most importantly, all their money that they've earned in their service is in their pocket and out in front of them where they know where it is. The earlier, the better. So I've talked to 20-year-olds who are worth probably $6 million in their lifetime. And I've talked to 65-year-olds who say, Albert, holy fucking shit, I don't want to even think about the money I've left behind. Let's just keep moving forward. There's nothing to do about it now. That's what they say. So it's crazy. And the government doesn't tell you about all the other shit. They'll go, well, let me tell you about free dental, not about the fuck you crazy money that you can take that and go, well, let me buy a franchise. Because the guy, you know what everybody says when they get their money from getting 100% with me? They say, Albert, I've got options. Now I'm in charge of my own destiny. What a great, it's not going to bring back past. It's not going to polish anything else for them. It's not going to change the past, but it gives them a future, and they're in control of their own destiny from then on out. And that's why I call it the Fulfilled Veteran Project, not the let me see what I can do project. So that's already been taken somewhere out there, I'm sure, the half-ass project. So I just keep telling these guys, here's what you've earned, here's what you qualify for, here's other death benefit money for your family. And I just keep moving them forward. It takes multiple years to get all that done. It's insane. But that's what I tell my clients. I tell people I want them to make decisions from abundance, not fear or depressions or woe is me. Like, just have money in your bank account and go, yeah, man, I can either pay. So this guy just started, he said, Albert, I've never been able to talk this out loud with anybody or think this out loud with anybody. So let me tell you this, with this money, I want to pay off my house. Maybe not. Maybe I could just, you know what? Maybe fuck it. I'm old enough. I want to do whatever the hell I want to. Maybe I'll go buy a motorcycle or whatever. This one guy who's from Indiana, by the way, he's been to my house. He sent me a picture. He was like a special operator, and he's now in his probably late 50s. But he sent me a picture, and it was him on a dirt bike, and it was out. It wasn't Indiana, and it was like not a crazy dirt bike. It's more of like a, what do they call it, the dual sport or whatever. And he said that he took his back pay, and he bought this motorcycle, and he got a trailer, and there's some kind of I don't call it a race. It's more of like a trail ride or experience from somewhere out in Southern California up into Utah or Salt Lake City or some shit like this. And it takes obviously multiple days to get there. So he said, Albert, I'm doing this just because I fucking can. I love that. You're not disabled. It's money. The government is lying to you. They pay you and they say, oh, you're on the disability chart. No, if you look back at the records, it was always created to be compensation and pension. That's it. So anyway, I just want to stay clear. I know we're coming up on an hour and a half and we're talking about other shit. So, but that was my positive segue to empire building and things like that. So in our closing minutes before we go behind the scenes for some additional chat, what's next? What are we not chat about? Events that you guys got coming up or other entities that we all need to know about? Because this is what we're here to do, is learn more about me and you and us and how we can be force multipliers, help these veterans know better and do better. What else you got on your calendar?
On Wednesday of this week, we had Women Veteran Recognition Day. A lot of people don't realize that we have a day to recognize specifically for women veterans. No, not because we're special or because we're unicorns, but because a lot of times our service goes unrecognized. We are mistaken as the spouse or the daughter of a veteran rather than the veterans that we are. And so June 12th is a day that we have for recognizing the service of women veterans. And the reason June 12th was chosen is it was on June 12th in 1948 that the War Integration Act was signed that gave women the ability to serve outside of the nursing corps. We have some events coming up here in Indiana. We have a couple of stand downs coming up. We have a Veterans Information Day coming up on July 20th in Hamilton County, in Noblesville, in Forest Park. And then one of the things I'm currently working on is we have a monument in Summitville, Indiana. It was created by the War Mothers. I played on that monument as a child. That's my hometown. It was redone about 10 years ago, and my name was added to it after the fact, but unfortunately my name was spelled wrong, and it was put on there twice. And so I'm currently working to try and get that monument in Summitville corrected so that my name is correct, and to add other names of veterans that were left off that monument, because it's important for those monuments to be accurate. And then we're working on our legislative priorities for the 2025 session. Two things I'm going to be working on: property taxes for disabled veterans in Indiana, and restoring the benefit for the children of disabled veterans back to what it was prior to when this General Assembly cut it in 2011. And so that's what I've got going on.
So what was the one you said that got cut? for children? What's that?
The remission of fees for the children of disabled veterans. If you are a veteran in Indiana that served and became disabled prior to 2011, your child goes to school free at any state university, free of tuition. But if you served and became disabled after 2011, your child gets 20% added to your VA disability rating, and that is the discount given on their tuition at any state university. Also, they added you can use $5,000 a year at a private university in Indiana for disabled veterans' children. But we want that benefit reinstated to what it was prior to the cut, because what happened in 2011 that they valued our children of disabled veterans less than they did prior to that. We need to have that benefit fixed.
It's weird. I hadn't heard about that. Yeah, because I knew about I talk about state level and federal level benefits. So state level is most states have a reduction or removal of tuition and fees. So yeah, Indiana is one of those, but it depends on I'm out of state. I came in out of state, so I'm not from here originally. And
well, for out of state, for veterans, this is one thing I want to make clear, anybody to know. You have to live here for 5 years. So you move here, you live here for 5 years, your children are eligible for that benefit, and they're eligible for that benefit all the way up until the age of 32, which means they have to have applied for the benefit. So say you have a 29-year-old daughter, or that's how old they're going to be when you become eligible for that benefit. And they say, oh, I have a 1-year-old, I can't go to school now. Apply for the benefit, secure your eligibility, and then use that benefit when you're able to. And so that's why, podcasts like yours are important so people can learn. Move to Indiana, live here for 5 years, and if you have a 10% rating or higher, your child goes to school free at any university. If you're 100% and you get the Chapter 35 benefits, just like my son just graduated from Purdue with a degree in aeronautical engineering with no student debt at all whatsoever, because I was fortunate enough, I knew about the benefits and services available for myself and for my children. And so thank you for doing this.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Yeah, there's death benefits out there too that are to veterans and their their spouses. So there's two styles of death benefits. There's one of them that is for, let's say I'm 100% permanent total. So there's one of them that's an accident. So after a certain amount of time of being 100% and married, so marriage and 100% has to last 10 years. So let's say I fall off my roof 11 years from now and die. That's an accident. So my wife would receive a accidental non-service connected death benefit of like $1,500 a month the rest of her life. Unless she gets remarried or, the usual kind of small print. The other death benefit that I help my clients out with is, I call it's environmental exposure. So I call it Big Brother. A lot of people are talking about PACT Act right now, which is honestly a fucking goose chase, because veterans are not receiving anything good from that I've seen thus far. They're better off aiming for get to 100% like me first, then you aim for environmental exposures as a all-encompassing. You never know what could come out. Somebody could say, hey, I was next to a burn pit, and so therefore my sinuses are fucked or whatever. Okay, fine. But what if you don't die of your sinuses? What if you die of belly issues or something like that? You die an old man in your bed, and your wife, who outlives you for 7 years, goes, well, he was next to burn pits. Well, but he didn't die of sinusitis. He didn't stop breathing. His guts stopped working. That killed him. Well, if he was service connected for GI stuff like GERD, which is heartburn, and lower GI stuff, which is IBS, then your missus would receive a $2,500 a month death benefit for the rest of her life. So I help my clients out with that. It's environmental exposures. It doesn't have to be anything. And that's Big Brother, been around for a long ass time. And that's why the government doesn't want you to know what I just told you. Environmental exposures. Now, go for the right now money and mid-range money for your kids first, then go for that death benefit money. So I want to make sure I'm putting that in the right order because I don't want people. That's why I think PACT Act is a bunch of fucking bullshit for the people who've been out for a while. So I thought it when it first came out. I didn't say anything about it because I go by what the VA does and what the VA pays. Because then I can reverse engineer it. I can say I get paid $5,000 a month. Here's why. Here's how. No veteran I know is getting paid anything related to PACT Act. Lisa may know people. I have not seen one person at all that I've talked to, and all of them end up saying something like, well, I was either flat out denied for shit that I was supposed to be connected with, or if they did get something, it would be burn pit related sinus problem at 0% on their e-benefits. That means at 0%, it has upward mobility. Maybe there's a death benefit later, but they're not getting paid anything. And if that veteran is sitting at, let's say 70% or 80 or even 90, it did them absolutely no monetary good. How long did it take you to get that? Well, 10 months. Well, did you get any pay, any back pay? No.
I'll tell you, the only veterans I know that are getting something from their PACT Act claims. I know a lot have filed, but the only ones that I know that are getting something are the ones that are terminally ill and their claims were expedited. And now the people who help them do their claims are now helping their widows, apply for DIC for them. And the widows they're just thankful that their claims got approved before their spouse passed, and that it makes it easier for them for that nexus to get the DIC completed. But that $1,500, maybe $1,700 a month you get for DIC does not make up the difference of what they were receiving and having their loved one with them.
Again, sick cycle, and it feels like it's like tossing a coin up in the air and seeing into a pool just to see, wishing well. Let me see what I can get. So gross.
Yeah, and there's a couple of forms that veterans need to have on file with the VA so that their family members, their loved ones who are helping them through this process and looking out for them, can communicate for them. If you are the POA for your elderly family member or for a veteran, unless the VA has, I think it's form 845 is the number for the form. If they don't have that in the veteran's file, even if they have your POA on file, they're still not going to talk to you about that veteran's health care or their VA disability compensation. And so veterans and their families sometimes run into brick walls because they just don't know what they don't know. And so things like this really help.
Something I highly recommend too, just Albert isms of I'm not a doctor, I don't play one on TV, so I'm just a guy who knows stuff. You're going to get better healthcare out on the open market. So this is a guy who had a vasectomy at the VA. Don't do that. Don't do that. I went from having, I was in Dallas, and when I was 21, I had LASIK done, and I had it done by thankfully the best guy in the nation at the time, and it was professional. It was quick, easy, comfortable. I was made comfortable. A vasectomy sucks balls, pardon me, but that's oh god. But at the VA, it's even worse. We're talking about animals earlier and like veterinarian and shit like this. Like I felt like I was in a veterinarian clinic and on horrible table. No, like you're gonna have anxiety when somebody's cutting you open. I know kind of like, hey, here's a sedative kind of thing. Like here's something that's gonna calm you down. Nothing. And they're like, oh, we got a student in here, by the way, so we're gonna go slow. No, you're gonna get better healthcare on the open market because at least it gives you another safety net too. On the open market, the people are, to me, I guess, take it for what it's worth, but the free market has some fear in there too. So a person in the government is not really fearful of being sued. So they can just be like, oh, fuck it. I can just do whatever the fuck I want to. Chop, chop, chop. But in the open market, you've got, I don't say you can be made whole, but you can be made better faster. You sue the fuck out of somebody out there in the open market. So that's just how I look at it. You're going to get a hell of a lot better healthcare. And just let me swing this back to a positive. Have fucking mentors, people. Have mentors. Be around each other. Be around veterans. Laughter is the best medicine. Us being around each other is the best medicine for veterans. And especially good stuff like fitness, and just go have a beer once a week with a group, or there's all kinds of little fitness runs and stuff, or walks. Just participate. Be visible. Be aware, because you go from being in the service of, as one of my clients said, literally shitting, showering, and shaving with all this white noise of people for years, months, decades, whatever it is. And then you get out and there's this silent fall. So that's why I got this podcast as well, to just be able to tell you guys that. Go out there and just fucking do something. Be around veterans. Be around your buddies. Create new buddies. Do shit. Like, no kidding. We love going down to Destin. We've never had a bad trip to Destin, because there's so many fucking veterans and service members down there that are still doing it, still rocking it out. And that's just my vibe of people. And so more to follow, a lot more happening down and out of Florida. So I'm staying here in Indiana, but there's a lot more happening out of Florida.
Yeah, I just came back from Florida the first week of May. I actually won a week at a condo in Melbourne Beach, Florida. And so I have met some women veterans at different events around the state and the country. And so I reached out to a few of them and said, hey, I won this week on Melbourne Beach in Florida from a nonprofit here in Indianapolis called Boundless Youth Ministries. They help young men and women in Indianapolis who are less fortunate keep their life on track. And we all flew into Orlando and rented a car and spent the week on the beach in Melbourne Beach. We went and had drinks at an American Legion. We went and saw the moving wall. We went to the Space Force base there and just enjoyed ourselves and celebrated our service and talked about the happy, fun memories, and how that decision to enter and enlist in the military, how it changed our lives, both for the good and the bad. And it was really regenerative for all of us. It helped us to just kind of repair and get back to being able to continue to help others.
I need to introduce you, Liam and Rachel. Make sure you guys take a note of this, that there's a woman out of Tampa, Florida, that you just reminded me of. I need to introduce you to her, because she's Lisa. She you probably find her on LinkedIn. I think her first name's Crystal, but she's on the board of Women in Defense out of Tampa area. Women in Defense. Great opportunity to chat with her. So Crystal, something rather. You probably find her on my LinkedIn. Super simple. But Rachel and Liam, you guys make sure we get that connection over Lisa. Keep in mind, the VA can change anything at any time, so that's why I stay away from forums and stuff like that, because it could just change. There's always a forum, but it could change, so it could go. Yeah, that's why I just stay away from. I'll say certain language like a DBQ or Nexus or something like. There's always paperwork. So, but thankfully, I'll give credit where credit's due, that the VA is doing a lot more online now since COVID forced them to, but that, like a marketer of mine says, different levels, different devils. So, which is so true, because it used to be so simple to start like your back pay clock online. So simple, 2 or 3 clicks here. Now it's a fucking nightmare. I tell my clients, just call the VA. It's so much simpler just to talk to them and get a back pay clock ticking. So, and it's like the VA keeps talking about, well, we've been moving from va.gov, or even if it's over to va.gov, that's been in transition for 5+ years. And is it slowly happening, or are things trickling over? Whatever. It's good enough for government work, I guess you'd say. But anyhow, so I appreciate you guys being here. So